This is John Favreau. And here we go, right out of the gate. This is part of the film I'm most proud of right here. Now take a look back there. You could see different things from Disneyland. We did a custom castle. It's hand-painted, cell animation, multi-plane, to have a nice low-tech start to our high-tech film as a little bit of a nod to the animators that came before us. And as you see here, it begins to transition into MPC's work and begins to get more photoreal. And this shot is an homage to the shot in Bambi, for those of you who are Disney fans. There's a snake on that branch back there. Kind of hard to see.
Many strange
and these guys here, these birds, this was the first test I saw, was of these birds. I think they're called bee eaters. I'm not sure which ones these are called. But MPC did a test, and the first moving test that I really bought was those birds. Everything was animated in the shot that I saw, and we'll try to include it in the additional materials. And that was the first time I was really convinced that we could make this thing look real, because if those of you who've been following my career, I've always been very resistant to CGI. I've always felt it was overused and applied in a way that wasn't correct. It's often used in applications where it's not convincing. And I've always held back, and little by little I've added more and more CG to my films. With Iron Man, I got into hard surfaces with ILM. That's a digital double, by the way, right there on Mowgli. There's a lot of digital double work. This is as well, which is a bit misleading because that's the one aspect that is not keyframe animated. That's done with motion capture on the double. I think that's a double too right there. And here, when he slides backwards, that's a double as well.
You must be the very worst wolf I've ever seen.
Yeah, but if the branch didn't break, I would have made it.
Crossing up wind, break.
We really worked hard on that first moment because we always felt that the first time an animal spoke, it was gonna, we would either lose the audience or not. And so we really worked hard on that moment and used lots of different takes of Mowgli. We reorganized the shots. We re-edited it.
Dead tree.
How was I supposed to know it was dead?
This was one of the first things we actually filmed. We motion captured, and then of course later we actually filmed it.
These are things a wolf must know.
I liked the opportunity to use scale in a different way here.
I realize you weren't born a wolf, but
because we were building the entire environment, there was an opportunity to
when I found him.
To mess with scale in the way that Avatar did. And that actually came out of the first meeting I had when I was talking with Alan Horn, the people over at Disney, that there was an opportunity to create an entire world. And that's a fun prospect as a filmmaker.
The people to protect him.
But because we weren't trying to tie into an existing jungle, we could create our own jungle. And although we tried to use photorealism in the way it's rendered and in what animals and plants would exist there, it gave me a lot of latitude as a filmmaker to do things like have a shot at sunset like this. Very hard to get a sunset shot like this because you're filming all day and there's only a few minutes of the day where the sky looks like this.
It was Raksha.
As you see there, Mowgli is weaving. Little tip that he's been exploring.
Playing gray. Come on, you're my brother.
Exploring tool building.
Here's some mice.
A lot of this film was how much could Mowgli actually do? What's plausible, considering he's never been around humans?
If it's meant to be.
So we figured that he might be doing some simple weaving and cordage and maybe napping and creating edge tools. But other than that, it would have been difficult for him to gain any sort of tech skill set. And we tried to make all of the things that happen in the film play out using that limited tool set. And so we wanted to tip it here.
Pack is the wolf, and the strength of the wolf.
I think this is really good work by MPC as well on Raksha and in communicating emotion and looking like a real wolf, but also having emotion and feeling the bonding. And this scene was very important to show that our little fellow was not doing very well. Here you see the camera work that's meant to reflect the multiplane work that Walt Disney was exploring with the Big Five animated films. Here's an interesting little time cut thing we explored, and we went back and forth with Adam Valdez over there at MPC and to find the right visual language. And we looked at other films that had tried their version of it to great success, and even commercials, and we finally landed on this thing of the day passing with the light shifting and looking like it has all the idiosyncrasies of filming it with a camera that snaps a few frames a day. And here is Icky, Porcupine, who was not in the animated film, but was in the Kipling. And Justin Marks was always lobbying for this character to be included. As we inevitably trim things down in the writing process, we stuck with Icky. And there is Gary Shandling, of course. Chill the Kite, also from the Kipling. This is Shandling was nice enough to come in and work on this. In addition to helping with other sequences, he was always a very generous collaborator. And whenever I worked with him, he would always come around and help out with little joke rewrites or words of encouragement. He'd been on the set of Chef. He was, of course, in Iron Man 2 when he was filming and when he was not. And even here, he was there throwing in suggestions when I was working with Sam Raimi as the squirrel and I was the pig later on in the film. Those little gags that are going on, he was there sticking around. And he even came back and re-recorded his voice in that previous scene where he was counting the stones because he felt he could do better. I guess he was under the weather. Now, I've later learned that he was having health problems, and he wanted to come back when he was feeling better. And he said, "I'd like to come back in and re-record. I have some new ideas," and we did. And of course, he always, being the comedy genius as he was, his instincts were always spot on, and he improved that sequence.
That's my stick. Like this. Seriously,
and there he is again, and that's the voice of Russell Peters, famous comedian, playing the peacock, and they improv together. And Russell's also this Rocky the Rhino. A little shout out to those of you who are fans of the original. It was a character that was eliminated, one of Walt's characters.
Whoa, don't forget the truth. I know them.
Particularly fine piece of CG work here with the water. Love that water sim. See him drinking that water? That's CG water. And when I saw the first water test of a grayscale Bagheera drinking from the water, I was completely hypnotized. And anytime we could have water in this film, I felt it was really special.
Weird. That's weird.
Mowgli.
I storyboarded that little sequence of the little animals turning. It was the only storyboarding I did. But that was a thought later on after our storyboard artist and our story department was gone. That was a little bit of a rethink. So maybe somewhere in the materials you'll see my little cartoon work of the jerboas and the rhino and the boar.
In some packs, the runt gets eaten.
Giancarlo Esposito playing Aquila, who I worked with before. Wonderful actor. And here is the introduction of Shere Khan. I remember when this shot first came in, over the animals looking up at the cliff. This was one of the first shots, and here's another version of it too, coming up here. Here's the introduction of Shere Khan. I like coming out of the sun like that. It's very classic cinema, very Man for All Seasons. First time see Henry VIII coming out of the sun like that. And just look at all that background work these animators did. And this is another shot from that angle that I was so impressed with, that backlit shot. Rob Legato would always push for backlight because it always makes not just CG characters, but people look wonderful. Lighting was established, of course, by Bill Pope in partnership with Rob and myself and Adam We all would discuss all of this stuff as we went. And what was so interesting about this process, look at all the background animation, by the way. Look at all those little details back there. I really think it's that attention to detail that makes this film stand out, which means that all of the artists contributed to keep the level of quality consistent throughout, and you just get lost in it. I still do as I watch this.
This scent that I'm on, I almost...
But as I was saying, it's a very collaborative process where Mark Lavosi, the editor, would sometimes give notes on the way things are shot, and sometimes the cinematographer would give notes on the way things are edited, and it was always a very collaborative group where there wasn't the territorialism that sometimes you find in the filmmaking process, where everybody has their own little territory. Here, everybody was just in the sandbox together, and I think that's why it comes out. I think it shows in the consistency and throughout, because it feels like we were of one mind together making this piece. Very different from most, as far as how nonlinear the whole process was. We go from planning and writing to storyboarding to, and by the way, Dave Lowry was the head of our storyboard artist, and we had a proper story department that was involved with coming up with ideas as they would with an animated film.
I'm sure he doesn't mean to come.
We came up with animatics. So we really stress tested the movie as a whole, much in the way that a Pixar would or a Disney animation, and before we ever started filming or even motion capturing was the second step.
Be respectful of these laws that keep us safe.
And here's Idris, who
So here's my promise.
I think really made this role his own.
The rains will return, and the river will rise, and when this rock disappears...
And this shot here, with the rock in the background, was, I think, voted by MPC one shot of the film, and I concur. I think it's a wonderful shot. It's not the flashiest shot in the film, but it looks completely photoreal. It's elegant and beautiful. Sean Bailey likes to have one frame from every film that he works on, have the filmmaker choose one that he keeps framed in his office, and that was the shot we chose to represent Jungle Book. And look at all of this. I got to say that every shot in this film, I stand behind. People work so hard. A lot of times you're rushing and there are some clinkers in there, and in this one, even this little moment, even that little moment. I remember when Andy Jones first showed me that. He's our head of animation. Everybody was so charmed by it, and it gets a chuckle still. This is an interesting one because the background place, actually, this is not a CG background. That was filmed by Rob Legato just as a plate as we were doing the rain for the scene with Mowgli that you're about to see with the wolves. He ran off a close-up. So it's interesting how it fits in. It fits in so well. It's a real testament to the quality of the environments that you kind of can't pick it out. And I love little Gray there. It was one of the first shots of Gray we saw where everybody was completely charmed. And of course, the studio asked for more and more and more of Gray, our little wolf cub.
They delivered.
And Gray's role grew and grew
For many days.
And I always felt that there needed to be one single wolf pup that could be identified. And Walt Disney actually on Bambi began to develop larger and larger room for the baby animals, and Thumper emerged in their story sessions as one individual one. And so I always felt that Gray was like our Thumper. And I certainly enjoy watching that character.
Mowgli, you're not supposed to go up there.
And here we go. And Neil, remember, has never done a movie before. And so all this stuff, all this point of view and this acting, you know, it's no mean feat to be able to maintain this level of presence and reality. And I can only help so much. And Sarah Arrington, who is working with him a lot too, was one of our motion capture performers, would run lines with him and be there and do off camera with him, or I would do off camera, or the puppeteers would do off camera. But honestly, it requires somebody who has a natural ability, and we were very fortunate to find somebody who was very entertaining to watch on camera, and also was a quick study, just a really sharp kid. Neil said he is. I think he really did a wonderful job. It takes a lot of trust to hire somebody to carry a film who's never done it before, and he really stepped up.
It's the only place he'll be safe.
Now, this shot coming up right here, this one, and especially the one where they touch foreheads, one of the most difficult shots in the film, to have that level of interactivity where a real person is interacting with a digital character, and not to hide those interaction points, not to have him touch the side of the face that you can't see, but actually to run the fingers through the fur. There are a few moments like this in the film, and we identified them early because I wanted them to, right there, I wanted them to work. I thought we'd have a lot of time with it because it was going to take some trial and error, but it popped up in our first trailer, and so I had to tell Hannah Valdez and the MPC people that, lo and behold, they'd have to do it a lot quicker than we had thought, but it really worked well, and they rose to the occasion. I love this. There's a shot of Raksha coming up that I think is a really good example right there of her behaving in a way that a real animal would, but yet reading the emotion into that character.
I wish I could tell you that the wolves could have fought Shere Khan.
Here, I love this little bit of narration
It's not that kind of a tale.
that Justin Marks provided into this musical swell here.
Maybe.
And this is a great time to talk about John Debney, who I worked with since Elf. I've worked with on a number of projects, and I met actually Richard Sherman through him when we came up with the Stark Expo theme for Iron Man 2.
Think is better.
Neither.
And we had such a wonderful time referencing Walt Disney, because that was the Howard Stark, I always felt was sort of a combination of Howard Hughes and Walt Disney. We did the old movies, if you've seen that film, and
You always
it was great talking to John Debney, because John is
That was different.
John's a guy who
why is it different?
grew up on the Disney lot. His father actually
'Cause it might fall
worked the clapboard for Snow White, for the reference in Snow White,
What I said.
when they shot footage for rotoscoping. And John Debney grew up in that environment and learned about music from watching people like the Sherman Brothers. And I said, this is one. I went to him and I said, I want you really to just dig down and access all the stuff you might be conscious or not be conscious of growing up around this, and really make a classic Disney score. And let's work with the score from the old film, the music from the old film, but also have new sounds and update it. That Mowgli theme, as they're walking in front of the waterfall, is, I think, some of the strongest stuff in this movie. And that's original for this film. That little moment with the elephant kind of reminds me of the scene in the original 67 film. But this treatment of the elephant is definitely taken from the Kipling, where there's reverence for them. And in setting it up, it led us, as we broke the story and developed it over the months and years, to our resolution later on in the film, by having them meet and show respect for the spirit animals of the jungle. We continue that relationship throughout, and actually provides plot points later on. I also thought about when I swam with dolphins in Hawaii, that little moment of interaction between the little one and Mowgli. Because if you've ever swam with dolphins, it's strange because you'll have them swim past you. And I remember a little baby one was checking us out, and I was there with my young daughter, and I felt like they were like both curious about each other. Even though we were far away from each other, as you swim, they sort of swim past you, and you do catch eye contact with them. You definitely feel a connection when in those moments, and I wanted to capture that feeling.
Two.
Listen to me, this is not a game. You're going to run to that ravine.
What are you talking about?
Go to the north where the sky glows at night. I'll find you on that path.
Bagheera, I'm not taking one more step.
Here's our stampede that is starting here. This is some of the first animal stuff we saw. There's a big question about how intense it would really look like when it was photoreal. And so Andy and Adam and Rob, there's a lot of discussion that went to what's that choreography going to be like and how much violence is going to be too much when it's animals fighting animals with these photoreal animals. And we wanted to make sure it was a PG movie. And so I think they really walked a really fine line of making it seem intense, but yet never showing really bloody violence or anything that was too much. But you felt the tension more than actually seeing something graphically. There's a handoff from a double that we motion captured rolling down the hill into Mowgli, into Neil rolling out of a jump. And there was real mud there with stuntmen in blue suits running past him. And we had LED boards with pre-animated run cycles to cast the proper shadows. The big boards like they used in Gravity. You saw that they used it for that. There's a double. By the way, that's a double of Mowgli running out of the way. Very nice double work by MPC. The interactive light was a big part of selling this thing. We buried a cut there on that splash. Lots of little tricks in here. And you notice the sky? We kept the sky ugly as much as possible. If there was heavy action, we kept the sky ugly. And then we got into shots like this where it was about the sky. We let it be a little prettier. Much like with pre-DI, pre-digital work photography, where beautiful shots were judged by a different standard than they are in CGI, where everything tends to lean towards the perfect and the beautiful. Yeah, great emotion there. Andy Jones and his team, really deserve a lot of the credit for, I think, how well this film has been received. Here's another great shot of Raksha.
Why did he have to leave?
Great.
We could have.
The next shot of Raksha is also stunning.
Let him go.
Stunning work right there.
Too. What's important is he's safe.
That's about as good as it gets. I remember just seeing these shots for the first time and just being so impressed with what the artists were able to do. And here we had a lot of fun, really leaning into the Western metaphor of here's the gunfighter coming in and the townspeople reacting. And what the classic Western was always about living on the edge of the wilderness, civilization meeting the wild, the untamed. And so Giancarlo Esposito here, as we talked about it, he's like a sheriff, and here comes the gunfighter. And here they sit down on the porch, looking out, having a real casual conversation. Look at this tension that leads right up to this and Debney's music. We had to get him close enough
I suppose
that you'd believe that he could get him, because we wanted there to be an abrupt end to Aquila.
The man cub has left the jungle.
But we also didn't want to make Aquila seem like seem like he didn't know what was going on. But here, Aquila's making a calculated decision to stand his ground, and he felt the pack climbing up the hill.
And where, may I ask, has he gone?
And so this negotiation was a very human moment, even though there's nothing but digital work going on here and animation. And the only thing that's organic is the voices. Look at that little ear flick. Just such beautiful work.
And most important,
and the wind.
We have peace. To
have that wind. But you see the sky isn't, usually in a CG shot, the sky is beautiful and blooming with clouds. Here we figured maybe it wasn't the best day. And here, how do you show this without showing it? See, it's off camera. It's very Disney.
And I got your attention now.
But it's a death happening of a main character in the second reel, a little bit late for modern Disney films.
So simple.
A little bit late. Usually it's in the first reel. Something like Finding Nemo right out of the gate, right off the bat. Bambi, of course, it happens very late. That's very off-putting. But it did have an impact and did it's a little bit of a different take on what happens in the Kipling to Aquila. But it helps fit into the Joseph Campbell mythology of it. Here, this is something we discussed for a long time, how cool this would be. I love this close-up coming up with a foot. It's the little things like this that just sell it. And you can see in the additional materials that he's actually riding on a mechanical gimbal rig that matched up with the walk cycle and design of our Buffalo that Shane and the folks at Legacy made to tie in with the visual effects work we were doing. Because I'd found in the past that if you move somebody around, it might look good on the set, but then you try to tie it into the visual effects and it starts to slide around and look fake. And so we tasked ourselves with making a lot of decisions about design and walk cycle early so that we could actually film a one-for-one representation of how he would interact with the animal. And we used the same rig for when he's riding Baloo with a slightly different set. There's that nice little snap zoom. Might look like something you'd see on YouTube. And here, of course, Mowgli's digital through the first half of the shot. And I'm not sure if he's digital. He's digital in most of the stuff. Splashing of the lens is great. Yeah, he's digital there. And into the water. Now there's a pool that was right downtown Los Angeles, like everything else that we shot. And the backgrounds, of course, were being added on. We had jets that blew a current through there. And, of course, we had like 4 divers in there. And it was very warm. Lots of laughs. The same pool we used to film Bare Necessities. And there's Digital Mowgli going off. And, of course, one of our surviving buffalo there. Here we are at the Kaz jungle. We're getting deeper into the heart of darkness here. Always hard to watch the run before we knew whether people would like the movie or not, because this whole second reel is pretty relentless as far as how much tension you're cranking up. And pretty much it's not till the end of the second reel that people start to feel the relief of the comedy and the music. So things are, people didn't know what to expect. This is, sometimes a little, you're not sure what kind of movie it's going to be at this point. And here was a piece of set, a little bit of jungle, kind of the runway. The way we filmed this movie was we would design these sets virtually. Chris Glass and his team would design it virtually, and then we would figure out where we'd have to put the obstacles and the bits of set where he would interact with. So something like that's completely digital. You go down here, and like that's practical. The skin is something we kind of added later. I talked to Legacy. I thought it'd be really cool to put that in a little bit of a tip of what might be up there. So audience members some might get it, some don't, but that's a big snake skin. He didn't like that. He didn't like that snake skin. I'm not sure if he knows what it is even. And then we get to the figs. And now we show a little clue as to his tool use coming up. Here, how does a human solve problems? They use tools. And so he's learned to use cordage. So when he can't reach it, you notice that the monkeys see him. And maybe they're reporting back to King Louie that this one might help him get the red flower. Coming up is one of those shared shots there. That's a Weta shot. So anytime the monkeys are in there, it was Weta. Everything else was MPC. And it's because each company has its own workflow, is always very complicated to get everything to line up correctly. So there, the background, I think, is MPC and the foreground is Weta. So there's a little civet. And here he has his little interaction. I always found Neil very charming here. Very natural. What I liked about him as he's talking to the little fella. Do you have a language?
Do you have a language?
Nice little bit of writing by Justin. I know Bill Pope always enjoyed this moment. It felt very correct to the world and the character. And here we go, and you think things are going good for him.
Don't be afraid.
I love that little bit of animation, too. Looking very coy. Andy Jones again. And it's just really setting him up for this. Back there. His little partners in crime. And, of course, the jungle in this version of the movie is not everybody's friendly in the jungle, which I thought was different from the 1967 film, but more consistent with the Kipling film. And then we transition up into the smokier canopy. So here, Neil was just walking on one log, and all the other stuff there's digital.
Hello?
And we start to sneak in the sound design, sounds that wrap around you, and then we start to tease in the shape of Ka in the vines, so you don't know where she is. And if you see upper left-hand corner, there's a little bit, you can see the texture there.
Who's out there?
Just a little bit of movement.
Don't be scared.
And of course, Scarlett Johansson, who was nice enough to do this, and this one scene
I was just passing through.
extended into the
Trouble?
narration for the trailer, and she sings a version of Trust in Me at the end credits. Oh, look at that. I love that little wrinkling there. Looks so good. And there's Ka back there.
He should be here soon.
And I'll have you know that Justin Marks, is our writer, does not like snakes. And so I think this is one of those scenes that
I'll keep
it
you
really
safe.
speaks to him.
Just you and me. Sweet thing.
Who are you?
And there's also a virtual reality experience that's available where we took this animation and put it into a VR thing that's touring around the theaters, and it's probably available for those people who have a HMD, want to check it out. I'm sure it's online.
You know what you are? I know what you are.
Very difficult to make this character talk
Where you came from.
because it doesn't really move like a human.
You do?
Yes.
And here we have our eyes, like in the 67 film. And look at the warping background. Really cool. Took a long time to figure this out, how to do it. And this works very well in 3D, of course.
Yeah.
And now this transition's wonderful. Look at how it transitions to that cave. And in 3D, you really see the dimension of that.
Sometimes they travel. And when they
I love how the rocks, the snake, the texture of the snake skin transitions into the rocks, and now into the red flower.
Red flower.
But I know that we went back and forth with MPC and myself and Rob with Adam and different members of the MPC team tried and would pitch different looks and moments until we found the look that was graphic enough because Mowgli can't really picture what fire is except through the description. He'd never seen it. But then this perhaps was some latent memories that Mowgli had. And she's unlocking, like in therapy, like you're unlocking these deep traumatic memories. And through the hypnosis, Mowgli's getting a memory of this moment that changed the course of his life and changed the course of Shere Khan's life.
Shere Khan ended the man's life that night. But not before he was burned.
So these great plates, this is part of our second unit that Rob had photographed. I was popping back and forth between the two units. We had sets across the alley from each other. That's how we would work. We would set one up and Bill I forget we were shooting together and Rob was here doing this with the kid and his parents. The kid does a great job. And here's the theme coming back. John Debney's theme works so well here. This moment of tenderness. Here's a moment where we had to get the kid to interact. And I think this is Rob's idea that it was his dad's iPhone. So he's actually reaching out to touch the iPhone, which I thought was somehow appropriate, being that it's about technology and and bonding with seeing these technological inventions of these animals and things that we believe is organic, and the kid is actually interacting with a piece of tech.
You can be with me if you want.
And if you've ever seen one of your own kids or another kid with an iPad from a young age, they know how to use it very quickly. It's pretty impressive.
Trust.
And here's a frame, of course, from the original film. And that was a digital Mowgli, by the way, and that's partially digital Mowgli. And there he is. And Baloo saves the day. Little Empire Strikes Back in there. You remember from Hoth? If you're not nerdy enough to know what I'm talking about, that's fine. And there's our 3D moment. And the tension
Relax, kid.
leads to a great intro of Bill.
Where am I?
And the animators looked at Bill Murray, and we really wanted to try to get some of his personality through this model. And of course, the bear doesn't look that much like a human. And so a lot of it came through the performance that the animators were able to translate into the bear.
Your new favorite hero, old Baloo here.
And I love his conversational performance here.
No big deal.
You know, I really tried to edit myself, and Mark really tried to embrace the naturalism of a live action performance, and not sometimes the over performance that comes with an animated voice track, which whenever I've done voices as a performer, I'm always encouraged to bring a lot of energy to fight through the animation. But here we really try to go with just a photoreal, naturalistic performance to match up with the real look. Here, this palette in this shot is, I think, really nice. It shows the new color palette, which matches up with the 67 film. The purples, and if you look, it starts to feel more like the animated film at this point.
Dripping down there. That's called honey. All you need to do, little one.
Here we've got the introduction of
and get me that thing
some of our supporting cast coming up, of which I am one.
Hitting me, right?
No, not really.
I like Neil's performance in here.
Kid. Try to understand this.
This is where you could tell he's a New Yorker.
It means that I have to eat my weight every day for hibernation purposes.
What do you call this?
I know I'm asking for a lot, but I don't climb.
And there's some nice subtle animation coming up here with the little eye,
You don't want me to go
the little eye movement here, the brows.
Never wake up.
I think that's lovely. We went back and forth because, of course, the animator's first instinct is to give it an animated performance, and it took a while for us to all get on the same page as far as, no, I really want something that's quite subtle. And once we all were on the same page, then the work began to, the first versions of things were very impressive. They really got it. Here's one of our doubles. I think the back of one of our doubles. I think that was Seth. There were two doubles. I should mention Mateo and Seth were two Mowgli doubles that were part of the team. And sometimes when there was running, and it's not Neil's face, sometimes it's Neil, but sometimes it's Seth. And when there's jumping and grabbing of ropes and climbing, a lot of times that's Mateo. So you're actually seeing three kids, and sometimes a digital double as well. And so all of this was shot. I think we were never more than, it was 30 inches off a mat. We had lots of, like, right behind him in the plate, there would be a stuntman in a blue suit actually spotting him, standing up. But none of this stuff was actually filmed that high off the ground for safety reasons. But of course, you add the visual set, the visual effects and the set extension, it starts to make you feel like you're high enough to get a nosebleed. This sequence was it was not in the original script. It was taken from research that we had of the way honey was harvested.
I'm afraid of heights.
Oh boy, here we go again.
By indigenous peoples, using actually ropes and slings and
as soon as the monkeys get stung, they always run away.
And lances and baskets.
A man cub?
Yeah, and could you keep your voice down? I'm trying to concentrate. Everything going A-okay up there?
There's a pangolin. A pangolin was not in our original version of the script either. But when we met with the zoo, when we were going over our script for just authenticity purposes, they had mentioned that pangolin was an animal that they would appreciate us including. There's myself. There's my voice.
Yeah, it's a man cub.
Pygmy hog.
You please shut up. Hey, up there. Everything is going fantastic.
They wanted us to include the pangolin because the pangolin was endangered, and they thought awareness might be raised, which would be good for the protection of the species. And not only that, but when we sell the dolls, the pangolin dolls, they donate some of the proceeds to an organization that helps protect them.
Oh, yeah.
And there I got squished.
Fred?
And I'm about to get exfoliated. There. Some of my best work.
Exfoliate me.
You said they didn't.
Here, this is the part. This is the Manhattan. The Manhattan's coming out of Neil.
Females. Ah.
I like that.
They look like males.
That look.
Females do sting. Just put some honey on those.
Honey, really?
I did a little research online. It is a.
You feel much
He has
better.
It's nature's ointment. I put it everywhere.
That little line, by the way, was improvised by one of our puppeteers, and we included it.
Okay, so we're even.
Gave it to Sam Raimi to say. So the Jim Henson Studios did design puppets that we used to interact with Mowgli on the set with Neil for performance and for framing.
Hey.
And so they were there. You know, the performers were there as well, and part of the team.
The hibernation. I could really use your help. You know,
And
you
this
stuck around.
bit of walk and talk, we didn't have enough room on the set, so we built a big turntable. A big turntable, and I think you could see in the additional materials that he's actually walking on a big blue record player, because we wanted to have an irregular terrain for him to walk over. So just having a treadmill wouldn't have done it, and so we had him walking over an irregular surface on a turntable, and the turntable's rotation drove a projector that would project those shadows onto him to make it look like he was walking through trees. And so all those little tricks added up to something where hopefully you accept this as him walking in a real environment. And then we applied the same shadow pattern onto the Baloo model. But Baloo was actually, I believe, already walking in a blue suit with some eyes on his fingers. And that's what he was interacting with. And here's how we tease the bare necessities. I'm just humming it at first. This was them climbing up a ramp on the set. Of course, all the jungle was added around it. And we had a life-size Baloo puppet that was actually casting a shadow onto Mowgli, because that's a very difficult thing to add later, is a fake shadow onto a real character. Always looks a bit fake. And so as you see that he clears, that was actually a life-size Baloo puppet that got out of the way.
As true as the sky. The wolf that keeps
Here's the
it
law of the
suffer,
jungle.
But the wolf that breaks it will die.
Kid, that's
I think this was an on-set
That's propaganda.
or a late-breaking little gag there, the propaganda line. And this shot was repurposed to a daylight shot for some of the trailers, much to Rob Legato's chagrin. We had to make it look like daylight. But at night, as it was intended to be shot, you can see this stuff looks really, really nice. And if you see it in extended dynamic range, it looks particularly beautiful, these night shots, as you get into the deeper blacks. And that's a new technology both in the theaters and at home, where you have extended dynamic range monitors. It's a really good breakthrough technologically that's helping to improve the theatrical experience. I know that we premiered the film at the El Capitan that had Dolby Vision 3D, and all these night scenes look very, very nice, and the 3D look wonderful because it's such a bright image.
I remember us living with the wolves.
Why do you want to go there?
But even here on the as I'm watching it now, as I record on the standard monitor that's not 3D, not extended dynamic range, we still had a tremendous amount of control over the lighting because of the CG environment. And then the lighting, of course, was established by Bill on the set, by Bill Pope.
What I saw you do today, I've never seen.
And so you have a look to the night work that I particularly enjoy, because it does feel a bit more naturalistic than it normally would on a practical shoot. Because you could really control the way the light hits everything. Normally you're there with trying to put up condors and cranes and trying to light the environment, or doing a CG extension. Here the night scenes, I think, are have a naturalism to them, but also feel you're also getting a lot of information. With as much night work as we have, we were able to combat the darkness of the film. It never feels like a dark film. And I love how he leans into him here, and Bill's performance as he sort of paraphrased and improvised. Bill Murray improvised quite a bit on the film. I encouraged it. We got a lot of that improv happening early when we were doing the recordings, and then we gave all of it. We cut it together, and then we gave it to the animators. And so all these little subtle nuances in the performance of the character is driven by Bill, his voice, and also by having pretty extensive video reference from 3 cameras, where we could actually use it as either the equivalent of capture data to help drive the animation, or it's just really good reference that the animators did keyframe off of, which is what most of it is.
Pops?
They're up there.
And there's the mom, nervous. And I like how it's lit here. See how the sky is sort of lit in the upper right and it falls off? That's duplicating, not, because we could have made a star field back there. We could have made it look like a real night, but instead we tried to make it look like how you would really film it, which was by putting a big old Musco up there and having some of the atmosphere lit up. And so that's why you see it's the right-hand side of the sky is lighter than the left. That's not what you see in real life, but it's what you see on a film set. So we're actually emulating a film set to help try to make it look more realistic. And here's the story of the cuckoo bird, which has a nice resonance with Shere Khan's issue with Raksha, that she invited an interloper into her family, which is ultimately destructive.
And do you know what happens to our own chicks?
Because the cuckoo bird, if you listen to the story, they lay their eggs into other birds' nests, and then the big cuckoo bird pushes the other chicks out until the mother's tricked and feeds only the cuckoo bird.
That wasn't her own.
There were also the vultures in the scene, if you saw earlier. It was a little bit of a nod to both the Kipling, because the vultures would come with Shere Khan, and also to the Disney 67 film, although they don't sing a barbershop quartet number in this. We felt that the Disney fans would forgive us that.
I think they like me.
Why are you doing this? He's gone. Isn't that what you wanted?
I want him dead. Once he gets word of what happened here, he'll come back.
And here you see this transition, because you could control everything. You could control the shapes of what's back there. And so it's a very nice transition. And here, of course, is a cuckoo bird, which we had designed earlier, and we use the cuckoo bird here. So it looks like a cute little moment, but actually it's for those of you who know what a cuckoo bird is, that they would notice. There's a digital Mowgli back there. And here, this performance of Baloo is based on my Cavalier, my King Charles T-Rex. Especially when he's laying his head down. If you have a dog, they do that. They don't move their head, but they keep an eye on what's going on. And there's me back there and all the animals exploring him. And he's finally getting to do what he's wanted to do the whole movie, which is use tools and build things. And here's a real fun moment, I think, where we let the camera do things we don't normally let. We tried to keep the camera bound in what you'd really have to film it in a real environment. But here we let the camera be a little bit more digital and had a little more fun with shots like this.
The second mark. Got it.
Just a lot of tension going on in the film. Just have a fun scene building into bare necessities. And I just love the environment here. There's a digital Mowgli again. And what we were able to do with the swimming pool and with the environment and the tools that MPC had used for the water and the fur. This is extremely complicated stuff. I think that's a digital Mowgli. Again, I just love how the water moves around and interacts. It doesn't draw attention to itself, but it adds a nice richness and dimension to this. And for some of it, I was actually in the swimming pool, actually coming up. It was either myself or Artie, who's one of our puppeteers, who would do off camera occasionally. And here I had hidden something to squirt Mowgli with, and he wasn't expecting it. And he got a kick out of it. And anytime there was a genuine reaction out of Neil, it was always so charming. So he worked such long hours, and for so many months, it was always fun to try to have something to break the rehearsed feeling of a lot of this stuff. And all this stuff, remember, he did twice. He did it once as a motion capture movie where we set the cameras, and then he had to perform it again in the actual set. So we had a long, what came down to a rehearsal period that I got to work with him, and then here he was actually filming it in the water.
Stay low on my back.
Here's your one of those Apocalypse Now moments where they went off.
Come on out and show yourself.
When Chef goes off into the jungle and the tiger jumps out. We were talking about that for this sequence. The build up to the tension.
Mowgli.
And there's another interactive moment.
I thought you were gone.
Again, not easy to do.
Yeah, I can't believe you found me. I was so worried about you. I was lost, and I didn't know what happened. But then I met Baloo, and then he saved me from a giant...
And look at the beautiful backgrounds here. You have the look of that 67 film. Purples. We found a way to work the palette in, even though we're using real vegetation that's in India.
Yeah, go on ahead.
I wanted to give it that brightness and that
Don't be mad.
that connection. And a shot like this is also one that I really, it doesn't seem like a showy shot, but it just, the amount of performance that's going on, just well done. Here, we just had a little bit, about 10 feet of a stream built that just circulated the water just to get the interactivity as he walked through it. And everything else is digital extension.
It's inside. Come on, let's go. Come on.
Bagheera is not happy that he's deviating away from the wolf ways.
It's a honey stash for winter.
And if you hear, he gets mad. Our sound department
Get mad.
mixed in some sounds of the actual animal. Especially with Shere Khan, you'll hear it.
Tricks. You want to do this, you do this in the man village.
But I'm
Chris and
you get ready
Laura
for the nation.
have worked with on a number of films up at Skywalker.
What are you teaching him?
Not full hibernation, but I nap.
And some of the set was built. Some of that honey was really there. A lot of it was added.
But I do. He's leaving now.
But I don't want to leave.
You don't have a choice.
Why don't we all just settle down for a minute? Look, it's gotten late. Too late to travel. So why don't we?
And we'll be working our way to the elephant scene.
No problem.
I'm assuming people don't care about spoilers now because,
sleep, and we can talk about.
well, you should probably watch it without the commentary the first time around.
But we're leaving first thing.
So this elephant scene was something, this is also a late-breaking idea of how to let Bagheera see that Mowgli is a shot. It just looks like a multi-plane shot from the original film. I like that little push in over the water. But it was an opportunity to show, even to Bagheera, that this kid's special. He's the real Joseph Campbell hero. He's the one. He's a special one that was sent to solve the problem of this world. A Neo-type character. And by showing that he has a special connection with the elephants that we've established are creatures to be revered and looked up to, but not interacted with. And that him, through showing being deferential to them and actually helping pull the thorn out of the lion's foot here, so to speak, by, they're clearly in crisis. and we don't reveal what it is, which is I like, because people didn't know. Some people knew, but a lot of people thought, well, is this a sheer contract in there? You don't know. There's an ambiguity. But he's coming close and he's curious, and now these intimidating creatures. But he learned a lesson of how to fit in from Bagheera, and they're now distracted back to the matter at hand. And the idea of a baby getting stuck in a mud pit is something that you do see in nature. We saw a lot of videos where the older ones help push them out with their trunks, but sometimes they have a difficult time. And humans do have to help sometimes. We've seen footage of humans helping. Since we worked on this, as we were working on this for many years, there was, I think, a YouTube video popped up where there was some sort of a park ranger that helped pull a baby elephant out of a mud pit. And so here it's revealed that maybe man's nature isn't always destructive, that there's a good side to it too. And the ingenuity and the tool use could be used for good reasons too. And this is where we depart thematically a bit from the Kipling and even the Disney version. And part of, I think, what's nice is that, as you retell these stories, you tell them for each generation has a different set of themes that applies. And here the idea that of us fitting into nature and helping to protect nature. And there's the baby, and then the bare necessities comes back in, and I really like this moment. And of course it's magic hour, so it's perfectly at dawn, which you would never get to do in a real film. And just Neil's performance and the animation and the lighting and the environment, all those things working together. And that moment, I feel, reminds me of Dumbo. Mom is reaching through the bars of the wagon.
Hey, guys.
And so, and the audience hopefully gets the impact of how special Mowgli is, and they both recognize it.
He's special.
I know he's special. I raised him.
And now we get into a scene that's reflective of what was in the 1967 film, when they realized that Mowgli's got to go back to the man village.
The boy's in danger.
I know.
And we looked at that scene. Justin and I looked at that, and it's a tough scene. But I think we found a nice way to make it look nice and get through the exposition that's required and kind of bring the story up to speed. And this is our last moment when they're all kind of together before he gets pulled up in reel 4 into the cold layers. Nice little bit of performance. Look at the insects in the air. That's something Rob always was pushing for, to create a sense of both reality and also helping with the 3D of it all. Those insects are just wonderful. And here we push the performance on Bagheera a little bit more than he normally would as far as facial expression, but I think we get away with it. And as you see, the time has transitioned gradually. So you went from nighttime to dawn to early morning here. Again, something that as a filmmaker I wouldn't have the luxury to do unless I had a very, very long shooting schedule. That you're always urged to either make it day or night because you have 12 hours to film it then. When you're saying you want to do something at dawn, you really stick fast to it. You're generally working with less than an hour of shooting time a day. So to be able to do all of this stuff was part of taking advantage of the opportunities presented as a filmmaker that you wouldn't normally have. And so this digital style of this virtual filmmaking style really opened up a lot of opportunities creatively for me as a filmmaker. And I tried to take advantage of the freedoms that I had, because there certainly were limitations. But there also were opportunities to tell a story in a different way than I had the opportunity to do before.
No, we were never friends. I
Get really nice performance here by our animators at MPC. And Andy, just subtlety, really asking a lot of this character to express
I don't
subtle,
want you around
subtle
anymore.
behavioral and emotional shifts where he's disguising his motivation. And I think it's a digital guy. I'm not sure. I can't keep track, which is a good thing. I can't keep track of what's real and what's digital when it comes to Mowgli climbing. I think this next shot is digital, and then as he goes around, that's digital, and as he comes around, I think it's practical there. And now we're into the Weta part of the sequence here. And you can see Mowgli, you can see he's been building little toys for himself. So he's been allowed to do all the things he wasn't allowed to do back with the wolves. Because, of course, Baloo encouraged it. And here comes our little, I think it's a langer. And I did some of it's real voices, so real animal sounds, some of it's me pitched up.
Go away.
And on the set, it was actually a puppet. He was interacting with a puppet.
Get away from me.
So all these scenes we had to do several times in pencil, motion capture, with puppets on the set, sometimes afterwards, as we were doing visual effects.
Get away!
And now, again, something that wasn't in the Kipling, but is in the 67. This is great because these were actually, to get the proper interaction, we had a row of stunt people passing in blue suits, passing him from hand to hand to create all those little interactive anomalies. And he's digital there, of course. But then there's some shots where he's not digital, where he's in a rig that Tommy Harper rigged up like this to get him to ragdoll around. And I think that's a fake shot. That's for sure fake. And then when he gets caught, that's fake too. But some of the other shots, he's actually real in a harness being moved around. This is one of the last shots we finished. Raging River. This idea here for this moment actually came during a recording session with Bill Murray. We were able to incorporate it, but it took till the very end to get it finished with a splash on the glass there. And I love how much the primates disrupt the foliage, how much they shake things. And of course, when we had Weta working on this, they had a tremendous amount of experience between King Kong and Planet of the Apes. And a lot of the choreography came from ideas that their team had that went beyond what our story department came up with. And so their inventiveness was really appreciated. And I love how much wind there was here. That's another thing you could do. You get all this wind going that you normally don't get in a real environment, or you got to travel around with big Ritter fans. It's hard to do on location. But since we're on the stage, we could get that wind that really gives you that sense of height. And then the reveal of the cold layers here. And this is something Chris Glass and his team came up with based on research. So it's a bit of an amalgam of a lot of architectural sites in India. And this whole fear of heights thing was a late-breaking thing that we came up with because we needed some cutaways.
It's doable.
And so the through line of Baloo being afraid of heights and being, that's why he's not getting the honey, and then he ends up having to climb up here. It shows a bit of self-sacrifice. And there's the elephants there, which is so great in the design because we've established the elephants are very important in our version of the CNE here. And here we would have stuntmen actually pushing him in blue suits and to get that proper interactivity. I like how, unlike in most CG films, we go silhouette-y sometimes and let the sky blow out, and again, don't try to make the image perfect. This is based on some YouTube research that we had, so we tried to make it look like that.
A bird.
I love the bonding that goes on between these two through these scenes.
Look at me.
These were just meant to be sort of comedic cutaways, but then over time, as we developed them, they became, real character development moments in addition to being comic relief. Just look at all that detail. everything going on here. These are all either animators, or I think they also used, sometimes at Weta, they had done some capture as reference as well, motion capture, because they have all those great performers that have worked on all their ape-type films. Oh, look at that. See, he's getting a sense of his first time seeing anything from the human world. And there's a little man's inhumanity to man there. This is digital. This is digital Mowgli there. Pretty impressed with that. And what has showed you that. And here's the cowbell. Now, originally that wasn't supposed to be what that was featured in the set. We had a prop that we had chosen. I think it's that brass bowl there that he was supposed to pick up, because it was supposed to look like the thing he built to scoop the water with. But I saw the cowbell on the set as we were getting ready to film. And then I remembered it's Chris Walken. And I did a last minute swap for those of you fans of SNL. And here he is. And then the introduction of King Louis. We looked at Storaro's work and Coppola's work in Apocalypse Now. And we we screened that sequence of when you first meet Kurtz. And we thought, because of his design and his shape and the idea that he's living in ancient ruins and he has all of his army around him, this shot specifically. And Bill Pope really embraced it. We really had a lot of fun doing this sequence. And then, of course, as we got more into it, and Rob and Dan Lemon over at Weta, we started really having a lot of fun with this. And then we started to shrink down some. Look at that little guy behind. I love how he crosses his little feet like that. It's a great moment of animation. As we had some of our little langurs that were shrunk down and we would put them in the fur, I wanted them to have like little creatures living in his fur. And so each one of them is a performance, is an animated performance. But I would talk a lot about the like the Skeksis and Dark Crystal and all the little creatures that Henson would put in, all the little, it was just so layered and detailed. I just wanted to fill every little corner of this thing. So if you look, there's little monkeys crawling through his fur all the time. Like his little minions were like Jabba's palace. The little guy, I forget his name, who
Well done, Oja.
was hanging out with Jabba, little Muppet looking guy.
Follow me.
No. We're on level ground here.
So now we get into
And I've got a plan.
really good performance animation by the team at Weta. And because the design was, designed to work around Christopher Walken, we really used his performance to drive the animation here.
You want to live here? You need a people.
We would always have 3 witness cameras.
Can protect you, and I will for a price.
And also, but of course the body language wasn't there. And so I did a lot on set. I was the guy who stood in for Louis with a mocap suit on. So a lot of the movement and choreography of the body was done on set, and everything that was facial was done by Christopher Walken. And all that was pulled together by Weta and by Dan.
And that's the one thing you can give me.
And I love the eyes, the blue eyes, and they really pulled enough of Chris Walken, and it almost looks like a prosthetic mask being worn by Chris Walken.
That's what makes.
Of course, Laura and Chris, the sound department, had to make his voice more booming,
They told me not to
scale it up, and make it feel like it's in this environment.
You know why they tell you that?
All that movement back there,
You rise to
by all the creatures.
Nothing in this jungle.
Lots of sessions back and forth about how much they should be worked up and how anxious, and how the energy would change from shot to shot and creating consistency between them. And then John Debney had to get the score just right so that it felt like we eased into this song properly, so it didn't break the tone too much. And we went back and forth with the performance, how funny it should be, how real. So the animators really worked hard on this area. And we ended up with a place I'm very satisfied.
you'll see it's true. Someone like me can learn to be.
The monkey's fighting back there over like some sort of bug that's living in his fur.
Now, you might think it's ridiculous.
You see when he rises up later, you see a little bug scatter. They're living in all of his matted fur.
Together we'd have powers. All the jungle's treasures. I got desire. You got the fire, but the dream I dream takes two.
We had seen the work that they had done on apes, and knew that we could really do some fun stuff by, taking it to this exaggerated design and scale, and then knowing the scale of the work that they had done at Weta King Kong just opened my mind up to a lot of ideas. Because one thing that's nice about the filming in this way is you could play with scale in a way that's difficult to with practical photography, unless you're doing miniature work or a lot of CG. But to have the entire environment and having simulcam with which we could see how to frame it properly, which is another problem when you're working like on the Iron Man films, you're kind of guessing at what's in the frame. But with simulcam, you've designed the entire environment, and as you look through the camera, you see everything. And if you want, you could even put the characters in and have pre-animated sequences and frame for it. And so that was a fun opportunity here to play with the tiny monkeys, the big ones,
Do you know justice, sir?
and King Louie, who's a Gigantopithecus in this. We wanted to include him, but of course there are no orangutans in the jungle in that part of the world. Walt Disney just stuck it in a cartoon. It was fine, but for us, we wanted to update it and keep it a little bit more plausible. So I guess having an extinct species, the last of his kind there hidden away in the ruins, felt somehow tied in with the Apocalypse Now thing to me. And he was sort of this one last.
A dream come true.
They're kind of like the Gigantopithecus or like the Bigfoot or the Abominable Snowman
Wait.
of that part of the world. And so maybe there's one like a Loch Ness monster still around. And all this great animation too, all these things. I think that's my voice too, that little monkey. But just Bill Murray improvising and then having Weta just stick all these little monkeys, just creating this overwhelming obstacle that he's dealing with, just enough to buy us the time that he could get him out.
I can't do that. Look, I scratch, I rub, I can grab a fish.
So it still serves the plot point that was in the Disney film, but in a way that I think works into our tone and to what Bill Murray is so good at, just letting him, his gift of gab, helping to create a distraction. And to actually have those two performers working together in New Orleans, where we're recording the music. We had Bill and Chris together, and then they recorded these scenes together. It was very helpful. Again, all this was filmed indoors on a big stage. All around, I love them. All the hair stuck down and the bugs clearing out. And here's our wave of. I love all this stuff. This is really fun because it gets into sort of that Lord of the Rings stuff and this King Kong stuff. So it's, knowing Weta's work and the work they had done with Peter Jackson really inspired me to have fun and really cut loose in this area. And they were very inventive. A lot of the stuff was later breaking, and so we really relied on them for a lot of creative ideas, and they contributed some wonderful stuff. And then here you have some really subtle, nice, emotional performance here as he's talking to the kid. Just nice little stuff that we really keyed off of what Walken was doing as you get into this tight work, this close work. Just real subtle.
Oh. You didn't hear?
And the lighting is subtle. Just really, really impressed with what they did here.
Must have been on account
because it's an emotional moment and a story point. It's not an effects moment. So the effects have to take a back seat to the story from time to time. And so there's a certain elegance that's required of your artist to be able to pull that off.
From who you are, to reality.
And they're working in some of the comedy to help, help balance out the intensity of what's going on inside. To make sure the monkeys got up and ran away. This is, I think, one of the Dave Lowry moments from the from the story department. So a lot of ideas coming together. And this stuff it's interesting because this stuff had a lot of animal voices, animal sounds here, and not a lot of dialogue. And it was too scary. And so by having Christopher Walken record more dialogue for this area, it really helped level it off a bit. Because this does get kind of scary because he's so big and so realistic. It's so dark, and big pop-up moment coming up here. Gotcha. There he is. And all this running. And Neil, one of the reasons we picked Neil is because he was an athlete. He played a lot of sports. And when we hired him, I had Tommy Harper run him through a bit of an obstacle course just to see if he could handle this stuff, because it's such a big part of, you have to be an action hero. So you can see he really has a nice stride and runs, and that's a hard thing. I've worked on enough sets with enough actors that when they have that ability, it helps the role. And just look at all this wonderful sim work done by Weta. This stuff, you don't get to see this till very late in the game. You don't have a lot of cracks at these things, and you're stuck with it because you're not going to cut it out of the movie if it doesn't work. And so we were very, very pleased with how all this temple collapse work ended up looking. Really good. Really good. I mean, we had to do some fine tuning, but that was more a matter of taste. But they were very impressive what their shop was able to do here. In addition to the, to the performances of all these little characters, but also just the nuts and bolts of having the physics of that thing collapsing in a way that is convincing.
Stay there. We'll come around to you.
And here's the moment when he realizes he was betrayed.
What?
And now the seed has been planted that the red flower gives you ultimate power. And this is sort of like where the red flower is like the ring, or, just the going home to get the Western, bringing the gun to town for the showdown, and just building it to feel like you're going to get the red flower and you're going to beat the tiger with it. And sort of opened up to the darker version of what it is to come of age and be a man, be destructive to nature, certainly. And that's the thing about Shere Khan. There's a lot of what he says there's some truth to. And so this in the development process, this was something I really wanted to work in, the idea that he could win without using the fire, and would put the fire out. That's a digital shot, by the way. It's a digital Mowgli, digital everything. Very, very impressive. We're back into the NPC work now. Here we had a bridge built on the set, and that's a really good little. Rob had filmed some people on set in our Splinter unit, and that fire was an element that was put behind them. And so this is a real interesting bit of compositing. What I had talked about is I wanted to show something that was normal and human, but to him and to the audience would seem really overwhelming and scary. And we talked about the scene where the clowns are drinking in silhouette in the tent in Dumbo, and how that appears to Dumbo. But really, if you just saw it filmed a different way, it would just be a bunch of people having some drinks in clown outfits. But because Disney did it in silhouette and did it the way that he did, it felt bigger than life. And so I think we were able to achieve our version of that. His first exposure to red flower and coming closer after being warned by everybody not to, and there it is. And so you get into that sort of Prometheus myth as well. He's stealing fire. Again, just a little bit of set here. Just a little bit of set there. I think that's completely digital. Just running through. And these little characters reacting. You're starting to get a sense, hopefully, and playing the Trust in Me song that played during the Kaz dream, where she explained how the red flower works, and now Mowgli's the one bringing it into the jungle. And people, even his friends, are getting concerned of what it means to bring fire into the into the jungle. And then just a little bit of a tease coming up here. And this is tricky because we filmed some of this practically right here. Just the idea that we set up the fire enough that when you see it burning in the background, it's not a surprise. But don't show it that much that you know for sure what's happening.
He's come to the jungle.
Stampede of the animals. Again, having the ability to do this digitally allowed us to show a lot of it, even though it's at night, but out without making it too bright, by doing strong rim lighting and contrast. And the music and the animation all working together, and here we are back in our other environment with a different look to it.
Pops, come on. Stay close.
A little chorus of talking jerboa, which I had seen Babe again in the theater, and the idea, like the little chorus of mice, I thought was a good opportunity to create layers of culture in the jungle community, and so we had our little jerboa voices, and here he is. You don't really see how the animals are reacting, and I wanted people to think like this is going to be the big showdown, and he's going to now fight Shere Khan with the fire, like in the '67 film. And also, I think there's a version of this in the Kipling. But now, Mowgli realizes that maybe he let his anger get the best of him, and now all of his friends are more scared of him than they are of Shere Khan, even his little buddy.
The man cub is now a man.
Even Gray.
Great.
So they're scared of him and or disappointed. And now it's almost like a court case. That's how we talked about this. And here's the trial attorney making his closing statement here.
I'm the one who saw your future.
And just a really good villain performed by a really good actor. And now Mowgli's feeling miserable because all Mowgli ever wanted to do is fit in. So now we wanted to build it to a point where you would believe that Mowgli would throw the fire out, which is a tough one. But the relentlessness of Shere Khan and the shame he's feeling, he only has one choice, and he throws it. And here's a powerful moment.
Leave the sea and eat, and this is my home.
And the animals are impressed, but ultimately not the best plan strategically. And so he fell right into maybe that's exactly what Shere Khan wanted to happen.
No teeth.
And then Baloo, the one who called it propaganda before, is actually the first one to step up.
Of the jungle, as old
And so he is part of the pack.
sky
And they're all pulling together.
that keeps it made
Maybe impressed by his self-sacrifice. Maybe because they all grew fond of him. They're not going to put up with the bully.
All of you. Want to put
Little Magnificent Seven here, a little Bug's Life, a little Seven Samurai. The idea that all the townspeople sticking together to fight off the gunfighter. And again, really good animation here in combat to show it as, intense but not brutal. And you see everything's just off camera, but still exciting. So well done.
Stay here.
But I want to fight with
And finally, Bagheera accepts him
Fight him like a wolf. You're not a
and
wolf.
lets him, not trying to make him a wolf anymore.
Fight him like a man.
And that means the world to this kid.
Now go. We'll hold him off.
As the camera work shifts a lot to have the energy in the camera work and disorient things, because we don't ever actually show anything as much as you would in a movie with an older rating. So you still get all the energy and excitement, but it still felt true to the Disney spirit. And I just love this little bit. After seeing and working on that sequence where Shere Khan knocks him around in the tiger grass earlier in the film, to have this moment where Ben Kingsley's character gets to actually stand up and But of course, ultimately, they're just buying him time. He's got to confront Shere Khan and defeat him. They could help, but these are just all the mentor type characters he had. They could all help, but the myth has to be that he has to fight the shadow himself. And what does he use? He uses his ingenuity. And there we see the tree. A lot of effort was put into actually making that recognizable as the tree that he breaks at the beginning when he is being chased by Bagheera in the first reel. The idea of setting it up. I really like the notion of setting something up at the very beginning of the film and ultimately using that thing to pay off for the end, to make it feel plausible. And not to have too many machinations that it felt like Home Alone or something, but actually have something, a plan that was hatching that felt like it was justified by his behavior and what he had learned to do over the course of the film. And what he had learned to do actually with Baloo, too. He was given the latitude. And how much fire to have. That was the other thing. To have it not be a roaring, like Bambi-style forest fire, but have enough that it threw light up there and felt dangerous and created an obstacle, but not enough that would destroy the whole jungle. And so as we worked with MPC, there was a lot of work that went into what was going to be the level of fire from shot to shot and how did it develop over the course of the film, over the course of the set piece. And I just think Andy Jones and his team did a fantastic job with the tiger here and how he's the sense of balance, and you understand the story point that he can't follow him because he's too heavy. And also what we were able to build on the fly, because the sequence was something we were coming up with as we were going. It wasn't as well planned out as everything else in the film. We kind of knew what it was, and we would have meetings to plan it. But oftentimes it was me drawing on a dry erase board and then I was going and filming. And to build stuff, not to the same extent that we had the other stuff. So we had a lot of PVC piping and flexible branches for certain areas so that Mowgli would be bouncing up and down on the branches as he was moving through it. And that would justify why Shere Khan couldn't follow him. And having all that interactivity and him having to maintain his balance, I really helps sell the environment. And between the stunt department and construction and the production designers to make it work together with the visual effects so well I was very impressed with how they were able to pull that off. And his plan is unfolding here. In our research, we saw trees that were killed by creeper vines and fig vines that would wrap around them, and then the tree would actually disintegrate within it, and just the vines would be there. And we thought that was a really fun, interesting thing, and ended up being part of the set piece. Another pop-up. There's our only drop of blood in the movie. Figured if Lion King could do it, we had permission for a little bit. And then it's just this great piece of set. And him just playing peekaboo and climbing up. It felt different than every other. We didn't want every set piece to look like him just doing parkour, jumping through tree branches like in the beginning of the film. And so we tried to find ways to create variety. And here are different. I think some of this is Mateo hopping around, and some of it's Neil, some of it's Seth, our three Mowgli actors. And then here we go with the beautiful uplighting that we had from Bill, having fire. So each sequence had a different element. I like the idea of there being fire in one part of the movie and water in another, and air and earth. And because everything, if it were just a regular jungle, everything would just be green all the time. And here we were able to have a drought and rain, and here we have fire. And Shere Khan's design, just like a fire creature coming out of it. And him having to fight his fear. Here we actually revoiced Mowgli. We re-recorded him because he got older. And so when we did the ADR, I felt it would be cool to have his voice be deeper and older, like he's coming of age. And so because he actually did age a long time. The movie Boyhood came out while we were working on this, and Bill Pope said, that's what we're doing, because that was like followed a kid over 10 years, and it feels like we did too, because we were filming for so long. And he would grow. I think he grew like 4 inches on the course of the film. But we shot in order, so it actually works. So you feel like he's coming of age over the course of it. And here we voiced him at the very end, so he had a bit more bass in his voice, and it's a great look from him there. And he really feels like he's grown up a lot over the course of the movie. And I think this is a great moment he gave us. And there's Giuliani, close-ups. And then to sell this moment, hats off to the animators, to the editors, to everybody, to folks at NPC, the environments, everything to just to tell the story and make it feel satisfying. And there's your classic Disney villain ending. And there, his ingenuity helped save him. He hatched a little bit of a plan, just complicated enough to be interesting, but hopefully plausible. And the relief, and he prevailed. But the entire environment got destroyed, or was on its way to being destroyed. And then this was another late-breaking idea that happened as we were filming. The idea of, hey, let's bring these guys back. And then we ended up putting the whole speech about how they created the jungle by creating furrows with their tusks where the rivers ran. That's all from the Kipling, and that's part of how we incorporated the Kipling, was we used it almost like scripture that Bagheera calls back to a lot, because Bagheera is the traditionalist here, sense of tradition. And so he would quote, like when they first meet the elephants, he would quote from the Kipling. And the Law of the Jungle is also from the Kipling. So the idea that that's part of the collective culture that they have. And then that speech gave me the idea for what we could do here by having them reroute the waterfall. But of course, that becomes a whole conversation with all the people at NPC and with Chris Glass and how to design this environment so you'd believe that the waterfall being dammed up would lead to all of those brush fires and spot fires being put out in a way that's visually communicatable. And there's Mowgli riding on one of those gimbal rigs. Again, riding the baby elephant. And the favor he paid them now is being repaid. And I remember seeing all this stuff for the first time. It's, a lot of this stuff came in very close to the end. It's just really magnificent work that, with a few images really sell the whole thing. And then the music, of course, is really what ties it all together. There's the embers flying through the air. That's Rob Legato always trying to add another layer of dimension and trying to really help sell the 3D, really embrace the 3D and not just have it as an afterthought, but design all these effects and all these shots and the camera movements in a way that, in addition to capturing native in 3D, which adds a richness to it that many don't do anymore, but was done on films like Avatar and Hugo that he'd worked on, but also to put elements in, to consider the 3D of it all when we're doing the effect shots too. And the little runt finally gets to howl after he was made fun of it on the rock by Keela. Now Gray gets to start them all going. And the sign of respect to Mowgli, who at the beginning was left out. It was howling to be part of them, and now they're all saluting him. And that's all he ever wanted, was to be part of it. Part of that family.
The jungle together for the very first.
The fire slowly going out, the steam rising. And Ben Kingsley's wonderful narration that really added so much to it. And in some way connects us to the narration of the original. And here a mixture of digital doubles and our various Mowglis. That's a digital one. That's digital. That's Neil. So a mixture of all these different elements. I think this is part digital, part real.
He never listens.
I love how he runs. How real it looks. Just a real kid. There he finally caught them, called back to the beginning, and now Baloo's part of the gang. That little yelp was something the sound department stuck in there. That was really fun. Picking up on what the animator stuck in.
But I'm not a wolf. Next time, stay together. Come on, guys. For the strength of the pack is the Wolf and the
Next generation learning.
the wolf is the pack. Mowgli's back.
It's the best friend waiting for Mowgli.
Hey, Mowgli, wait for us. Hurry up, guys.
And
Hi, Gray.
a little goodbye to everybody here. Now he's got 2 scars. He had 1 scar for the whole movie, and he's got another one from Shere Khan. He's a warrior now.
This is the law of the jungle.
And so what's different here from the other movie is this one he ends up staying. I never liked that he went with the girl at the end. It was little. It wasn't a happy ending to me.
Back. For the strength of the pack.
This is a little bit of a surprise. I had the stuntman jump down and really shake it. And so this was actually a blown take where he was laughing because he almost fell off the thing into the pad. You know, there was a pad right under him. Remember, everything is only 30 inches off the ground. But it was a surprise. I had the stuntman. I had Sean jump onto that thing and shake it. And he, again, that little honest moment was enough to, as I worked with Mark in the editing room, we just built this whole little area around that moment and having them all up there together. And this is the actual book that was used at the beginning of the 67 Jungle Book from Disney. They had a real book open to start it over Blue Velvet to start the film off. And for months I was asking, is there any way we could get the book? And Disney was like, no. Either we can't find it or you can't have it. And we had to actually film it at the archives. And it could only be handled by an archivist in white gloves. And we had to have it bounce for the music. And so we cut a hole in the table and the archivist actually would hit it with a broom handle. So that's their performance. But I loved having the movie start with and end with a practical gag that made reference to the old film.
I'm the king of the swingers.
And this was also a late-breaking idea to have all these little vignettes from the Jungle Book as a credit sequence. And so Weta did these portions and MPC did the other, and they all had to tie together. But I love the idea of like a miniature set, but still photoreal, but still, a little bit stylized.
I want to walk like you, talk like you, too. You'll see it through.
Pixar helped with some ideas for this. There were a lot of pitches for what we could do here.
Someone like you.
I kind of had a style that I wanted to use and a motif, but they're just an idea factory. But between them and the Brain Trust and the Story Trust and the Disney Animation, it was very, very helpful to us throughout the process. So I want to thank them, not just in the credits, but here as well. They've always been gracious hosts to me whenever I'd gone on tour there or hung out or screened something or did a talk there. And it just was a real treat to get to work with them in this capacity and really be inspired by the way they break their story and the way that they board things out and use that for a live action film. And even though there's, everything here is animated, I mean, almost every shot's animated, to give it the look of a live action film, for it to pass the smell test that it's a live action film, even though it's an animated film at the same time. It was great to have that aspect of animation, of that whole story exploration that's done on the front end that you don't get to do on a live action film. And you would benefit even from a film that has no animation in it. You would benefit from it. So that was great. This is The Law of the Jungle, by the way, from the Kipling.
You might think it's ridiculous.
All written out. So to be able to use a lot of what I learned from watching the Pixar movies and their commentary and their additional materials, I was able to put it to work and to hire people who were used to working in animation to help with that. And it really helped with the design. And then, of course, the second step was motion capture, which was, really emulating what was done on Avatar. And that was Rob's big vision was, let's not do the layout in the computer. Let's do it, in a volume on a set with virtual cameras and with all of our department heads there and make it feel like a real film set. And that's the way Jim Cameron had liked to work on Avatar. So that helped us lay the cameras out and get the basic set designs in. And then we had to go back yet again and split out every live action shot that had Mowgli and film that in a real set. And then all the animal performances, of course, were done keyframe on top of that. So it really had elements of all these different techniques. And U & Co., a company does titles, did this beautiful sliding 2D/3D backgrounds. And the music is Trust in Me, which was the song that the Snake sang in the original film. It was written by the Sherman Brothers. And here we had Scarlett Johansson sing it. And Mark Ronson produced it for us, and he had a real great vision. I called him out of the blue. We'd shown him the film. He had a vision for giving it this sort of Leslie Gore's sound, this sort of 60s sound. And then he wanted to have an orchestra, too. He thought that would be really fun. And he recorded the rhythm tracks in Brooklyn. But then we recorded out here, we recorded Scarlet together. And then, fortunately, John Debney was doing score. And so we had a full orchestra. And so we brought it into the orchestra as well. And so we got orchestral tracks. And so it's a really wonderful song that I think is, a really good take on the Sherman Brothers classic. See Jim Henson Creature Shop there in Legacy. There was a lot of practical stuff on the set. The puppets, as I said, that you'll never see in the movie, but really helped with the process in Legacy, building props and things like the snake skin, but also the big gimbal rig. And you'll see how many names now are coming up from MPC. So many people from all around the world. The main house was in London. And I would talk to them almost every day via either visiting there or via a digital link. Because of how good technology has gotten with communication, it would be like sitting in the room with them. So many hours are spent in a dark room, in a screening room, where we would look at things together and give notes to the animators. You can see all these names here, all the people who worked hard. And I think it's a good opportunity to mention that even though this is a very high-tech film, and we tried to do a lot of things that nobody had done before, I just want to make it clear that these movies are handmade films. Those are just tools that are used by artists. And these are all artists and filmmakers who are either through animation creating performances or as artists creating paintings and making the comps look right and make everything look photoreal and match together. But it's not like you stick this thing in a computer and out pops a movie. Quite to the contrary. Even if they're using motion capture data, that's just a basis for them to interpolate a performance from that data or from reference. Just as Disney used a rotoscope as a basis for animation. All of this stuff are just tools that are used by artists to create this world. And if you see them work, you realize it's just another set of paints that they're using and another set of tools. And as John Lasseter says, it would be like saying the pencil did the animation to say a computer does the animation on these types of films. And I don't think I think people know that, but it's not mentioned enough. And a lot of people assume that the technology does all the work. But as you see this list of names that goes on, and now into Weta, you'll see that these are just incredibly experienced, hardworking, gifted people that are really creating the images that you're seeing. And hopefully you're not thinking too much about the tech as you're watching it, and you get caught up in the characters and the story and the emotion. And that's certainly what Walt Disney sought to do, because he was using very high-tech tools of his day. But in fact, we remember those films more for the characters and the emotion and the way that we felt and what we were scared of and what made us cry and what made us laugh.
So just relax.
So you could look at the materials that accompany this, but we basically made the film 4 times. And I just want to draw attention to everybody's contribution, people who worked with the story department, writing, pencil sketches, animatics. Then we got into motion capture to lay out the cameras and all of that. And these names you're seeing here reflect that. A little bit of previs going into it. It was a real mix of all different techniques. And then finally doing the tech viz, where we broke apart the film that we created with previs and then worked it into like an element shoot. And everybody worked on the set for that. And then finally, as we turned it over, it became full animation and visual effects show with people from all around the world working on that, as well as, of course, the sound department that you need to bring this whole thing to life and make it feel alive, and requires a lot more work when you're starting from scratch. And now we get into the music. Richard Sherman, actually, for I Want to Be Like You, wrote some new lyrics for us because the story changed a bit. The Gigantopithecus lines. That was a lot of fun. And of course, there's a Dr. John version that we recorded down in New Orleans. There's Fantasound, the Fantasound logo. We tried to bring that back, look that up online and see what Fantasound is, but it was something we tried to bring back, and they're filmed in downtown Los Angeles. Thank you all for watching. It's a film that I've seen a lot. It was fun to watch it again and talk about it. And thank you all.